Well, it's such a pleasure to see genlab as our main implementing partner bring together the Bangladeshi conclave that is part of the Climate Action Champion Network. This is a nascent group, and for us at the U.S. State Department, we are so proud to see this incredible group of people come together from throughout Bangladesh. When we think about young people all across the world, from my own native New York State, and we think about the United States and how huge it is and how incredibly diverse it is, each and every country is as diverse as the United States. And for us here in Dhaka, Bangladesh, we think about what are all the young people in Bangladesh doing and what can they do to join together with all the other young people across the world who are feeling the incredible impacts of climate change. Enough has been said and done about what we are living in today. We see the impact every single day, whether it's the impact of air pollution, when we think about the use of plastics, and just our day-to-day, just the changing of the temperatures year by year is just nothing short of extraordinary. And it's not those of us who will inherit that future, it's the young people of the whole world. And so when we think about why we want to increase this cooperation from different young people around the globe, we have to think about what are they experiencing, but what do they need to mobilize? Not yesterday, not today, but right now. And so for us at the US government, we're thinking about whether it's my colleagues in Sub-Saharan Africa, my colleagues in Latin America, in East Asia, all the way into the United States. This is a global movement, and it requires global action, and it requires immediate action. So when we think about young people here in Cox's Bazar, or we think about the young people in New York City, where I'm from, they actually have some shared vision of what they want to see from this world. They do want to be able to live in a world with stable temperatures. They want to be able to enjoy fresh water. They want to have seasons the way we used to have 10, 20, 30 years ago. And to be able to enjoy that future and pass that to the next generation, they need us to be able to support them. And what does that look like? When we think about what this conclave is, it's not just people coming together to talk about the problems. It's actually coming together to think about solutions. And some of that has to be a mindset, some of that has to be mentality shifting, but it also has to be part of action building. And action building from one person's perspective who is maybe in university versus another young person who is going into the workforce. They have totally different perspectives. They can come from the private sector, public sector, small village, big city, but they actually have shared problems. But if you bring those people together, that is what intersectionality needs to be like when we talk about climate change. Climate change requires all of us to think really, really creatively. What do we need now as a world to understand, whether you're coming from corporate, you're coming from a small university, you work as a doctor, you work as an engineer, as a lawyer. All of those fields together have to come together to be able to mobilize on climate. And it has to be the young people of this world who can work together in that multi-dimensional way. Otherwise, we will not be able to pass Mother Earth down to the future generations the way we want to. And for us, when we think about corporate, for example, here in the United States, that's a big, big push from our US government, because we really do believe what we call public-private partnerships are an essential component to making sure we can actually mitigate the long-term effects of climate. So for example, when we talk about COP27 and we talk about what different governments around the world convened in Sharm el-Sheikh to talk about climate, we think about not just the governments, actually the private sector coming in and having that conversation. What can they do? What are their responsibilities? Just something as simple as Coca-Cola, an American brand. They produce, of course, Coke, what we all love to drink, but it's in these little bottles, glass, can, etc. But what can Coca-Cola do to mitigate the effects? Because we love to drink Coca-Cola, but what happens when you throw away that can in the trash? So for us in the United States, there are a lot of different ways that Coca-Cola is implementing corporate social responsibility mechanisms to ensure that they're climate friendly. But here in Bangladesh, maybe we haven't seen some of those yet, because here we're used to utilizing plastic, for example. We have to demand more from the private sector partners and ask them, hey, if you're doing this in one country, why not think about doing it here, and vice versa? Maybe you're not giving the people an opportunity to change their mentality, to think creatively. When you tell them, hey, we need to change this because otherwise we won't inherit the Mother Earth we want to, then I'm sure you will believe that there are so many opportunities out there. So that's just one example, but we really do believe in the US that when we think about how the public sector and private sector can come together, that they can really mobilize. And of course, one of the major things that we are focusing on is getting more on climate financing. And climate financing, of course, comes from governments around the world, but it also requires private sector to give some money to make sure we can actually make some of this change happen. So my hope in this conclave is to make sure we can demand from private sector here in Bangladesh and in South Asia, but also demand from our US partners, what can US businesses do to make sure they are also our partners in this climate change effort? Because otherwise, if we don't work together, we will fail together.